My family is originally from Ethiopia, and the age that we came to the US, I was 12 years old at that time. The cultural expectations in girls in the US is very different from what's culturally supposed to be expected from like a Somali girl. As the oldest in the house, you're expected to, my grandma always says, before reaching the age of 25, if you're not married, then what are you doing with your life? So she definitely expected me to be married and to have my own family, if not have like some kids around. And I would say it's very different from what I am now. I think because I integrated so well into the American culture that I was so focused in school and finishing my degree before thinking about having a family or starting my own family. And I was kind of caught in the middle because my mom obviously wants me to do what I want to do, but at the same time, she'll always say, like, well, don't forget, you don't want to get too old and then, like there's nobody around. So the way our refugee parents see problems in the US is very different than how it really is. I would say one of the biggest thing is that they assume that things could be fixed easily. One example is when my siblings used to go to school, one of my brother would be having problems at school all the time, and whenever he would come home, it wasn't much of a discussion because the teacher would say, well, he got in trouble for this and that. So it was really hard for my mom to understand what it was about and for me to explain it to her and for him to talk about it, because in our household it's kind of like, if you get into a problem at school, it's your fault. Like, you should be focused on your studies. Why are you entertaining this? My mom does have issue understanding mental health only because they didn't grow up in that generation. They kind of grew up figuring out their own issues or their problems, or not just talking about it with people. They kind of see it now that if we say, well, we all have mental health, but if you tell them this is what I'm struggling with and you give them certain names, they're not used to it, so they won't really know how to help you with that. They'll just say, well, our thing is like, well, why don't you turn to the religion or use your spirituality, your connection with God, and just figure out that way. There is definitely a barrier when it comes to Somali refugees receiving services for mental health. I think one of the biggest ones is the fact that our parents aren't really aware of mental health as being a problem or an illness, as in something that they need to seek outside help from. I think the other issue that needs to be discussed is kind of realizing that this is okay to talk about in the community as well as in our own households. It's not really just a hush hush, or you don't want to bring out your family issues. A lot of times when young kids or girls are having these issues, they kind of don't want to air out their family issues, because then it's like, why are you putting my problems out there for the world? The solution is not ignoring it and kind of realizing, just like we go to the doctor when we're sick, we should trust somebody with our minds and to kind of help us in that way as well. The recommendation I would give to an immigrant parent using a child who grew up in the United States is to have an open communication. I think one of the most important thing that most parents don't pay attention to is that most of their kids will listen to their advice if they are willing to listen to their kids. That isn't really talked about, or it isn't really enforced in our community. So having an open communication with them, if they get into a trouble at school, is not seen as like you're the bad child, but really, tell me what's going on, why is this always being raised? I believe that will give the child the courage to say, well, my mom doesn't always see me as a troublemaker, let me go to her with my problems. So I believe if the parents started having open communication with their children at a young age, or at least when they came into the US, then it will allow them to have that relationship where they don't find out that something happened to their child too late, rather be in the process of recovery with them.